Hey everybody, welcome to the Sana Q&As with Meredith Miller from Inner Integration, here helping you recover after relationships with psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, and other manipulative characters. I'm going to answer a few more questions today. This person says, "Hey Meredith, I'm finding myself really triggered by President-elect Trump's narcopathic behavior. I'm totally traumatized by how unstoppable and horrifying it is. When I see people opposed to him suddenly turn into mouthpieces for his agenda, as if they had been hypnotized, I know what is happening to them, and it is beyond terrifying to me. It is mind control at the highest level. How do you break through the incredibly dangerous mesmerism of the sociopathic narcissist? His followers and flying monkeys have a cult-like loyalty beyond reason. Truly terrifying." Okay. So let me just preface this by saying whenever I mention controversial topics like astrology or politics, some people get really, really upset because when they hear things that go against their belief systems, it freaks them out, right? So here's the warning now. If you're going to be pissed that we're talking about politics, do yourself a favor and just stop listening now. Just go ahead. Just exit out of the screen or hit the back button or just go to your favorite website. Just do it. Just save us all the effort of reading all the horrible comments that are going to come below. Everybody's entitled to opinion, and we don't all have to agree on opinions. But some people just get so upset that we're even talking about things like this. So I'm just warning you, this is about politics. This is going to be about politics. If you don't want to hear this, stop watching. So to this person who asked the question, let me just start off by saying you are not alone. You are not alone. Watching the 2016 election was like watching a lot of people that we love in an abusive relationship, and they don't want to hear it. Remember that part? When you were in it and you didn't want to hear it, maybe someone called you out, hey, that looks like an abusive relationship. It really appears that you're enabling that abuse, that you're enabling this abusive person, and you didn't want to hear it. I've been there. I know exactly what that is. Or when you see someone that you love and you're like, please, you got to leave that guy. You got to get out of that marriage with that woman. That's not okay for you. You're not doing all right. They're abusing you. They don't want to hear it. In fact, they even defend the abuser usually. And if you tell them they have to make a choice between the abuser and you, the friend who loves them and wants to help them, 9 out of 10 times they will choose that abusive person. It's the Stockholm syndrome, right? You can't blame them. Remember, you were there at one point too, and let that help you find compassion for people who are supporting any flavor of evil, right? 82% of Americans didn't want to vote for either narcopath running in the 2016 election. Most people voted against someone or against an ideal or against something versus voting for something. That to me is a sign that as a society we are settling for what we don't want instead of creating the life that we actually want. I really think that this election, more than any other elections in the past, has brought up the reality that these two parties are two sides of one coin. The game was meant to divide and conquer people, the population, into this perpetual fighting, destruction of one another, these two diametrically opposed viewpoints, these two candidates that appear to be totally opposite, but actually this is what's called a classic double bind. It's a false choice, right? Here, if I tell you you have a choice, you can pick this or you can pick this, and you're like, but I don't want either one of those choices. And I tell you, well, you have to pick. That's not a real choice. That's a false choice. That's the double bind of the two-party system. The double bind is what the narcissist does. It's what the psychopath does when you're in a relationship with them. They give you a false choice. They tell you you have to pick one or the other. You don't want either one, but you go along with the lesser evil just to, to tell yourself, okay, well, it's not the worst of the worst, instead of waking up and realizing, whoa, I don't actually have to pick either one of those. Like, most Americans didn't even know there were other people running in this election because that's the way the system is set up. It's set up to make you believe that it's just these two parties and the only people who have a chance to win is one of these two established parties, and you better pick a flavor of evil because that's what we do. We just pick flavors of evil and we go on, right? So that's one thing. Here's another thing. If your eyes are really open and you're not looking through partisan glasses, you will notice that the 2016 election was between a wolf in wolf's clothing and a wolf in sheep's clothing. One was the overt version, one was the covert version. I know that's going to upset a lot of people, but that is the reality as I see it. Okay, if you really want to see the big picture, notice that those were two sides of the same coin. One came dressed as a wolf, and the other came dressed as a sheep. But at the core, they are both wolves. If one of your parents was more the Trump style, you may find yourself more triggered by him, right? You can see that. You know that pattern. If one of your parents was more the Hillary style, you might find yourself more triggered by her, because you recognize that. You can see what the covert type is. It triggers you because it reminds you of something. Maybe the person asking this question, maybe you were dealing with some overt, malignant types of narcissists and psychopaths in your life. Maybe for you, that's why Trump is more triggering. So here's what I suggest. If you want to get some relief, I recommend looking at the big picture. The same exact thing is happening with Hillary supporters. They're also in the hypnotic trance. They're also in the hypocritical defending of a sociopath's transgressions, repeating the controlled narrative and the talking points that they heard in the corporate media. Both sides are doing that. That's exactly how the game was set up, right? Both parties are part of the same whole. The neocons infiltrated the Republican Party a while back. Now the neoliberals have invaded the Democratic Party, and they are so similar, the neocons and the neolibs. So very similar. They're both warmongers, they're both corporate shills and Wall Street puppets, because that's where the money is. They are two sides of one coin. This person mentioned mind control, and that's true. There's definitely mind control happening on a societal level, but it is not just limited to Trump. It is not. He's the overt version. I believe personally that the spiritual reason for him coming to power now is about awakening the awareness in the people. This has been going on for a long time. This is nothing new. The powers that be that are working behind the puppets in office, that hasn't changed in a long time. Those are just puppets that are in office. The powers that be have been continual. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat in office. That agenda keeps coming through. And I believe this is our chance to wake up before it's too late. I believe that if people had chosen the covert version, perhaps they would have gone back to sleep and just let it keep perpetuating. It would have been too late. I hope that this is now the opportunity for people to wake up, to see it, because it's out in your face, right? It's not hidden. You don't really have to read between the lines. You don't really have to know about covert aggression. You can see it. He just spews it out. You can read his Twitter feed. You know exactly what's on his mind. When we look at the trauma-based mind control, or the mind control that's been happening in society, this, I believe, started to spread massively after World War II in society. There was something called Project Paperclip, where they imported into the United States a bunch of Nazi scientists and psychiatrists like Dr. Mengele, and they put them to work on mind control programs, the CIA and other black ops like Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird. They actually used trauma-based mind control techniques to cause multiple personalities in people so they can use them as couriers of information and messages without those people even knowing what they were saying. Right? It was some sort of code. They triggered them into multiple personalities, and they created those multiple personalities by fragmenting their mind through trauma-based mind control. This stuff happened. This really happened here. And then the entertainment industry and the media became the prominent way of hypnotizing the masses, subjecting us to narcissistic abuse, teaching us to value narcissistic values. The TV became a prominent weapon of mass destruction. You can only call out the truth for how you see it. You can tell people, you can post it on Facebook, you can have conversations, you can make videos, you can make art. You can organize in your community. Maybe people listen, maybe people hear you, maybe no one pays attention. Maybe a few people, maybe more. I think it's going to take America some time to wake up to this, because the American exceptionalism runs strong. American pride is very, very strong. And this whole, bipartisan thing of creating these two completely seemingly opposite points of view and keeping people in perpetual arguments and just repeating and parroting, these talking points and controlled narratives, it's very hard to pierce that. very, very hard, because the people themselves are carrying out the abuse upon one another. It's not just the psychopaths in power, it's the people that are abusing one another. They get us to divide and conquer that way. That's how they maintain their control. So the keeping us fighting and keeping us arguing against one another, when you see people doing that, I don't mean calling out the truth that you see about something, but I mean like just insulting someone and saying horrible things and then spewing out things that aren't even facts and are just something that's been heard in the media and spread around. This is very dangerous. It's very dangerous to our own cohesion in society. And I think maybe that is the gift of having the wolf in wolf's clothing, that it's just going to be so out in our faces. People won't have a choice but to wake up as a society and choose better. Because if we don't choose better over the next 4 years, if we don't start learning inside ourselves how we need to change, because it all starts with the individual. It's not about that person, sitting in the White House. It starts with the individual. It starts in society among us. We create the society. We create these leaders. Just like George Carlin said, like, where do these leaders come from? They come from society. Garbage in, garbage out. That's what he says. We have to heal ourselves first. And I think the biggest problem here is that people are looking for a savior. That's the core of codependency. We're still waiting for mommy or daddy to love us, to rescue us, to meet our needs. And then as adults, we get into these relationships hoping that someone will hear us or see us or help us or rescue us. It's time that we individuate. It's time that we rescue ourselves. It's time that we realize we are the ones that we've been waiting for, and to stop waiting for the savior to come outside of ourselves. That's the perfect point to set yourself up for abuse. If you think about it, it happened after GW, after George II. We were like so desperate to get him out of power after everything that happened. Obama came along with a similar cult-like loyalty, but he ran on the oldest sales trick in the book. When you get people to say yes once, you get people to say yes twice, and they'll say yes 3 times, and they just keep saying yes. Now, 8 years on, his fans are, for the most part, ignoring the evidence that we are at war with 7 different countries right now. We're bombing 7 different countries. Most of those wars were not authorized by Congress. In 2016 alone, Obama dropped 26,000 bombs. That is 3 per hour of every day last year. He even changed the definition of the word combatant, meaning anyone legal age for the military, so that he could drastically alter the number of innocent civilians killed in his drone strikes. He stripped away more civil rights from us. He renewed and increased the Patriot Act. He took away Americans' rights to trial. He added indefinite detention, meaning they can keep you locked up indefinitely as long as they want without charges or fair trial. He evoked the Espionage Act 6 or 7 times during his presidency against whistleblowers, when this act had only been used 3 total times before 2008. Between 1918, when the Espionage Act was created, and 2008, it was used 3 times. Obama used it 6 to 7 times during his presidency. He also legalized government-sponsored propaganda in 2012, in the NDAA of 2012. And then on December 23rd, just before the Christmas holiday, just now, he funded government-sponsored propaganda in the NDAA 2017 bill, the power which he's now handing off to Trump, right? So they're clearly serving the same master. It's the same agenda. The agenda keeps happening. The faces of the puppets are changing, right? Obama is a master at gaslighting and using covert aggressive tactics like evasion, redirection, blame shifting, guilt tripping. I mean, he's one of the best, and he looks good doing it because he's super eloquent. He's super sophisticated, especially comparing him to George W. Bush and Trump. He's just a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's all a big game. The person in power is just a puppet serving the master. Both sides are serving the same master, and that master gets us to fight ourselves. We abuse each other. They don't even have to do all that work. So when we really wake up to that reality, we're on the right track. Until then, they will keep us fighting amongst ourselves, destroying each other, and parroting partisan talking points to support our belief systems and our partisan glasses. My suggestion is to use this as an opportunity to educate yourself and to educate those who will listen. Not everyone will. I expect there might be plenty of angry, abusive comments on these topics, and I just won't give any energy to that, and I recommend you don't either. Focus on the people who are waking up and believe that we can do better as a society. Focus on what you want to contribute and let it be something peaceful. I think that's one of the most important things, is that we have to keep this peaceful. Violence begets more violence. We don't solve violence with violence. We just get more war, more hatred, more killing, more destruction. We have to find a peaceful way, and it has to start within ourselves. You know, the fatalism of, oh, well, we're fucked. Well, that's not helpful either. Right? A lot of people looked at this election, they're like, well, you know, they're both wolves, right? They're both sociopaths, one more narcissistic, one more sociopathic, whatever, it doesn't matter. But one of them was coming into power. It doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean we're totally screwed. It means it's a wake-up call. This is an opportunity. So what now? What do we do now, right? Be the best you can be. How can you heal yourself? How can you improve yourself? What can you contribute to making a difference in the world? What if we all did that instead of just complaining? What if we all gave something? What if we all tried to make a difference to make this world somehow better, make the world around us? I don't mean we have to affect the massive world. I mean, when you affect the people around you in your community, in your family, in your group of friends, somehow you work to make the world better. Somehow you work to leave something that creates a difference. What if we do that? Right? They want us to feel hopeless, helpless, and powerless, because that's how the abuser keeps you in the relationship. Then they dose you with a little bit of hope. Obama's campaign ran on hope. And every now and then they just dose you with a little more hope to keep you hooked into the abuse cycle and to keep you looking away from everything that's happening that you don't really want to see and that they don't really want you to see. They want us to feel hopeless, helpless, and powerless. And I have found that when you're in situations where it feels like there's nothing you can do, because we look at the politics and we're like, well, there's nothing we can do. And that's true in one way. We may not be able to affect that. Even changing the people who go into Congress and whatnot and who go into the White House, it doesn't necessarily change anything because it's still happening behind the scenes. When you are in a life situation where you feel hopeless, helpless, and powerless, and like there's nothing else you can do, it seems like everything outside of you is out of your control, the only thing you can do is self-care. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Work to make yourself healthy. Work to make yourself happy. Work to make yourself be the best version of you that you can be, because when you are shining that light, you are like giving permission to everybody else to shine their light, to heal themselves, to help themselves, to take care of themselves, to untrain this old codependency pattern that we as citizens have, expecting that our government is going to come in like a savior, like a rescuer, to fix things, to help us, to save us. We got to stop waiting for a savior. We got to be the ones that we've been waiting for. We got to take the action. And I really hope that we take peaceful action. If we're going to transform this in a positive way, it's going to have to come from peace and not from violence and not from fear. Right? We got to take off the rose-colored glasses. We got to see the big picture, just like when you were stuck in the abuse and you couldn't see the big picture and you were just looking at this thing and that thing and that thing, and you were trying to understand it, but you couldn't because you couldn't see the big picture. Once you see the big picture, it starts looking a lot clearer. When you really look at the societal picture, and the rabbit hole goes really deep, and you don't have to go all the way down there because it can get pretty dark and pretty crazy. But if you just look at the basic premise here of the double bind, that we're being put into a double bind with this two-party system, with this seemingly appearance of these two candidates being polar opposites and the two parties being polar opposites, when really they're two sides of the same coin. They're two halves of one whole. And that these people in office are a representation of our culture, or they wouldn't be there. You know, when we look at Iceland, look at what happened in Iceland, right? There are some core differences between Iceland and America. One is that it's a lot smaller population, and the vast majority of the population lives in the capital, Reykjavik. So, you know, when the WikiLeaks stuff came out and they found out that their bankers had been screwing them over and cheating and lying, the people marched. They threw the bankers in jail. They took them out of power and they put the bankers in jail. They took action. The difference is when the WikiLeaks came out here, America was just like, yeah, whatever. or, oh, old news, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, don't even look, or worse yet, oh, that's not even real. We don't even know the validity of it, when in actuality, WikiLeaks has a 100% accuracy rate. They've never been wrong. They've never even been challenged on anything they've been wrong. And in fact, the US intelligence agencies have said this is legit information. So, the approach of let's not even look at that, let's just be in denial, that's an unhealthy pattern. We got to break that pattern. Like, we don't want to see the truth when it's ugly. Remember when you were in the relationship, you didn't want to see the truth. It was ugly. You wanted to believe in the beautiful illusion. You wanted to believe in the hope that everything would be okay, and the hope that this person would change, and the hope that they would deliver these promises that they kept saying. But it didn't turn out that way. Right? We got to take off the denial glasses. We got to take off the partisan glasses. We got to really see with an open mind and with actual neutrality, and really recognize with objectiveness what's going on. And we got to start within. That's what I believe. So that's my suggestion to you if you're finding it really triggering. And I understand why. Because you've probably met people like that. And you probably see him, and then you see all these other people, or at least one other person that you knew like that. Of course it's triggering. But I would suggest that you look at the bigger picture, and that you remove the helpless, hopeless, and powerless feeling that they're trying to impose on us. Take care of yourself. Choose to do something that makes a difference in the world around you, so that you can feel like you're contributing in a positive way. I'm sending you a big hug.